Implementing a healthy lifestyle to go about living longer? That's a good question, isn't it? Well, we already kind of know how to do that. Science kind of knows how to do that. We might not know the exact mechanisms. Now, before I start this, I want to make sure people understand I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a registered nurse, not a nurse practitioner, not a chiropractor, not a dietitian, not a nutritionist. I'm none of that. I'm not a physical therapist, not any of that. So, this is not health advice. This is for entertainment purposes only, yada, yada, yada. That's the disclaimer. Don't take health advice from me. Don't take health advice from people on YouTube. So, we might not know the exact mechanism behind how people can live longer, but we pretty much know that eating certain foods increases lifespan. Eating other foods decreases lifespan. Practicing certain habits increases lifespan, and practicing other habits decreases lifespan. So let's go through these. So this is from the Harvard.edu. So let's see, what are these 5 healthy habits here? Okay, so maintaining 5 healthy habits: eating a healthy diet, exercising regularly, keeping a healthy body weight, not drinking too much alcohol, and not smoking during adulthood, may add more than a decade to life expectancy, according to a new study led by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Now, I'm going to go through a couple of these and show that we kind of know what to do and that people should be implementing these things. So this is just these 5 healthy habits that were shown by research that was done by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. 10 steps to increase your life expectancy. So keep in mind, life expectancy can be increased with simple steps and changes. This guide will help you find ways to increase your life expectancy. This is from Very Well. The guy that wrote it is a guy named Mark Stibich, PhD. Okay, so go outside. Life expectancy can be increased simply by going outside. When you go outside, your skin gets exposed to sunlight. That exposure triggers cells in your skin to produce vitamin D. Vitamin D is really a pro-hormone. Some estimate 50% of you to die. Okay, so go outside. Hang out with friends. Life expectancy can be increased by just hanging out with your friends and family. The more connected someone is, the better their overall health. Having positive relationships with a spouse, friends, and family is the best way to be connected. Get daily exercise. Improve your life expectancy with a commitment to daily exercise. A study showed that people who exercise vigorously for around 3 hours a week had DNA and cells that were 9 years younger than non-exercisers. 3 hours a week is a little more than 30 minutes a day. The easiest way to create an exercise habit is through daily repetition. When you promise yourself to exercise daily, now that sounds a lot like Jack LaLanne, and I'm going to get into some of that in the future too. Okay, so when you promise yourself to exercise daily, you may skip a day, but then get back on the program the following day. Floss daily. This prevents gum disease and heart disease by preventing bacterial infection getting into the bloodstream. Have more sex. Your life expectancy may be increased by having more sex. This is good news, especially because issues around sex and aging are being taken more and more seriously by the medical community. Why sex should be linked to life expectancy is something of a mystery. Of course, no, it isn't. In ancient and traditional Chinese medicine, Jing energy, or virility, both in men and women, but the Jing energy, sexual vitality, is connected to longevity. Obviously, sexual desire wanes as you get older. The more desirous you are of sex, of course, the younger your mindset is. Be more like a vegetarian. Life expectancy can be linked to 3 factors that vegetarians excel at: fewer bad fats, more antioxidants, and lower weight. Before we go into how being a vegetarian can help your life expectancy, though, we have to define what we mean by a vegetarian. There are some vegetarians who are junk food vegetarians. Remember, I've gone over this a bunch of times. A vegetarian is not somebody that eats garbage. Well, it can be. But the thing is, it's not a processed food diet is not what they mean by a vegetarian diet. They mean a whole food, plant-centered diet. So what they mean is a person who is eating lots of vegetables prepared in healthy fats such as olive oil, while limiting animal products such as cheese and cream. They'll call this type of vegetarian a whole foods vegetarian. The leading cause of death and number one shortener of life expectancy in the United States is heart disease. Okay. Lower your stress. Life expectancy can be messed up by stress in two major ways. The first way is through direct unhealthy effects of stress on the body in the short term. The second way stress may shorten your life expectancy is through the negative behaviors that being stressed triggers. These behaviors include comfort eating and smoking. Get health screenings and tests. Everybody, mammograms, colonoscopy, pap smear. Turn off your TV. No one has done. Avoid risks. Life expectancy can be protected by making sure that you don't take any unnecessary risks. Most common causes of death for young people are accidents, injuries, and violence. Wear your seatbelt. Drive defensively. Avoid situations that may lead to injury. Avoid risky sex. Avoid violent situations. Don't smoke. Maintain healthy weight. Okay. So a lot of people have heard me talk about what led me back to a belief in God, a pantheistic belief in God, was a lot of my friends that were gerontologists were raving about the Adventist diet. The Adventist diet. Not the Adventist lifestyle, the Adventist diet. So I took it upon myself to learn, because there's a lot of research into the Adventist diet and how it extends lifespan. It's an Adventist vegan diet. And I decided that I would go back and read the writings of Ellen G. White, the person that created it, because I wanted to know how to actually practice the whole lifestyle. Now, out of all of the blue zones, the Adventist health style is the most comprehensive way to basically encourage longevity. So the 8 laws of health that Ellen G. White devised, or she says that God told her, is nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, rest, air, and trust in God. So nutrition, the dangers of eating meat and dairy products. The following list of common complaints can be directly linked to the consumption of meat and dairy products: hives, sinusitis, heart disorders, seborrhea, that's like fatty issues with the skin, impaired digestion, obesity, dermatitis, diarrhea, edema, acne, gas and bloating, body odor, dry scaly skin, constipation, allergies, bedwetting, intellectual, moral, This is just going through quotes of her thing. People can click on this and read it. Grains, it is much healthier to use whole grains, not refined ones, not white flour, white pasta, white rice, white bread, etc. The whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead. Whole grains are good for all blood sugar disorders. I'm going to get into this later. Sugar is not good for the stomach. It causes fermentation, and this clouds the brain. Exercise. In order for the brain to have clearness and strength of thought, retentive memory, and mental power, the muscles of the body should have exercise, a portion of each day. Remember, daily exercise, in order to preserve and improve the health. The Health Reformer, March 1st, Ellen G. White. When the weather will permit, all who can possibly do so ought to walk in the open air every day. Remember, fresh air. Summer and winter, but the clothing should be suitable for the exercise and the feet should be well protected. A walk even in winter would be more beneficial to the health than all the medicine the doctors may prescribe. That's from Ellen G. White. The chief, if not the only reason why many become invalids is that the blood does not circulate freely, and the changes in the vital fluid which are necessary to life and health do not take place. They have not given their bodies exercise, not their lungs food, which is pure fresh air. Water. Drink at least 8 glasses of water a day. Pure water to drink, fresh air to breathe. Invigorate the vital organs, purifies the blood, and helps nature in her task of overcoming the bad conditions of the system. Many health problems would be eliminated, including bowel and bladder problems, anxiety attacks, and food intolerance reactions, if enough water were drunk. Sunshine, remember that was part of the other one. Now, you have to remember, this is back in the 1800s that she came up with this. Sunshine is one of nature's most healing agents. If all would appreciate the sunshine and expose every article of clothing to its drying, purifying rays, mildew, mold would be prevented. This is the only way rooms can be kept from impurities. Every room in our dwellings should be daily thrown open to the day. Many have become afraid of the sun, thinking they will get skin cancer from it. They believe the sun does not cause skin cancer. I don't agree with that. I do think you should not go crazy with sun, but 15 I get like about 15 minutes to a half hour of sun a day. Temperance. In order to preserve health, temperance in all things is necessary. Temperance in labor, temperance in eating. So what temperance is self-discipline. Don't overdo anything. True temperance teaches us to dispense entirely with everything hurtful and to use judiciously that which is healthful. The faith I live by, Ellen G. White. Many Christians believe that moderation is the key. We strongly disagree. Think about it. Is cocaine okay in moderation? Of course not. You see, true temperance means to abstain completely from things that are bad for you, and to use moderately those things that are good for you. About 100 years ago, there was something called the Temperance Pledge. At that time, people who signed it were promising to not drink or have anything to do with liquor. It would be good if we could have a temperance pledge today, but it should include way more than liquor. Our bodies are the temple of God. We should not put anything into it that is not good for it. Let's think about that for a moment. What are some common things that people put into their bodies that are not good for them? Coffee, cigarette smoke, chocolate. I'll get into chocolate in later videos. Chocolate can be good for you. The vast majority of, artificial sweeteners, blah, blah, blah. If you feel a bit overwhelmed and maybe discouraged thinking about these things, blah, 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 the air is a free blessing of heaven, calculated to electrify the whole system. Ellen G. White. Thousands have died for want of pure water and pure air who might have lived. These blessings they need in order to become well. If they would become enlightened and let medicine alone and accustom themselves to outdoor exercise and to air. Remember, go outside was one of the other ones. To air in their homes, summer and winter. Rest. Okay, give yourself proper time to sleep. They who sleep give nature time to build up and repair the weary waste of the organs. What people need to understand, there are certain DNA repair mechanisms and stuff that are activated by sleep that we didn't even know about until a few years ago. Trust in God. Now, what I want to point out, what I discovered, I'm not like a real religious person, so what I had to remember was it's not so much trusting in God, but trusting in the fact that you're not God, that you can't control everything, and letting go, as the drunks say, let go and let God. Understand what's in your control. Control what you can control, but don't seek to overstretch yourself to things that you can't control and make yourself sick. Okay, so it's not so much trusting in God, but knowing that you're not God. As I said at the beginning of this, we know that eating certain foods will help us live longer, and eating other foods won't help us live longer. Okay, so these data indicate that higher whole grain consumption is associated with lower total and cardiovascular mortality in the United States, men and women, independent of other dietary and lifestyle factors. These results are in line with recommendations that promote increased whole grain consumption to facilitate disease prevention. So take note of that. The data in this study shows that higher whole grain consumption, independent of other dietary factors, okay, results in line, and lifestyle factors, results in line with recommendations that promote increased whole grain consumption, meaning whole oats, like rolled oats, oatmeal, okay, whole wheat, whole rye, whole barley, brown rice. Okay, these foods, these are whole grains. Popcorn, but don't put butter on it, you know what I mean? So whole grains have been widely recommended in numerous dietary guidelines as a healthful food in comparison to refined carbohydrates. Whole grains contain many beneficial nutrients and phytochemicals that primarily reside in the outer layers of the grains that are removed during the milling process to produce refined grain products. In laboratory research and human feeding trials, whole grains as well as constitutes of whole grains such as insoluble fiber, magnesium, and phytochemicals consistently have beneficial effects on glucose metabolism, blood lipids, endothelial function, antioxidant activity, and inflammation. In addition, epidemiological studies have consistently found inverse associations between whole grain intake and a lower risk of type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular diseases. Now, as I noted before, I don't think people should be consuming a lot of fruit due to the high fructose. And as Dr. Atkins stated, I don't think you can compare fruits and vegetables equally. It's like comparing apples and asparagus. You can't do it. The asparagus is always going to come out on top as far as health benefits are concerned. So, fruit and vegetable intake and mortality. This is from the American Heart Association's journal. I believe this is Circulation. Okay, so conclusion. Higher intakes of fruit and vegetables. Remember, eating certain things can extend lifespan. Eating other things can decrease lifespan. Okay, so conclusions. Higher intakes of fruit and vegetables were associated with lower mortality. The risk reduction plateaued at 5 servings of fruit and vegetables per day. These findings support current dietary recommendations to increase intakes of fruit and vegetables, but not fruit juices or potatoes. So take note of that. Not fruit juices and not potatoes. And I would also add to that, not most fruits, aside from things like berries and, citrus rinds, things of that nature. There is no need to be taking in large amounts of sugar from fruit. It's just not a necessary thing, okay? Especially when we know fructose has such a bad outcome on the system. Estimating the impact of food choices on life expectancy, a modeling study. This is a very good study. Conclusions: a sustained dietary change may give substantial health gains for people of all ages, both for optimized and feasible changes. Gains are predicted to be larger the earlier the dietary changes are initiated in life. The Food for Healthy Living calculator that is provided online could be useful for clinicians. I'm going to leave a link to that. Policymakers and lay people to understand the health impact of dietary choices. Author summary, why the study did. What do these findings mean? Understanding the relative citation, methods, results. This section we focus on the United States, but results from China. Okay, so it's possible. Okay, associated with typical Western diet. Expected increase in lifespan for optimizing different food groups with diet changes initiated. Okay, so the following intakes were used: it's whole grains and vegetables, blah blah blah. When changing for typical Western diet, the table indicates discussion. This paper, we present a method of estimating the impact of food choices on life extension. This method has been implemented in a tool that is freely available online, the Food for Healthy Life calculator. Our results indicate that for individuals with a typical Western diet, sustained dietary changes at any age may give substantial health benefits, although the gains are the largest if changes are, of course, made early in life. Eating more legumes, more whole grains, more nuts, and eating less red meat and less processed meat were estimated to be the most effective ways to increase life expectancy in individuals with a typical diet. This reflects a combination of the health effect for each food group combined with the difference between typical and optimal intakes. Meta-analyses have also shown strong positive health effects from fruits, vegetables, and fish. However, for these foods, the typical intake was closer to optimum intake than for other food groups, particularly for vegetables. One could argue that for some food groups, such as legumes, an optimal diet requires large intake, and that such intakes might be unfeasible for many. So, a diet based in legumes and vegetables, okay? A whole food, plant-based diet based in legumes and vegetables. It's not unfeasible, okay? It's very doable if you try to do it, okay? However, for most food groups, our estimates in the feasibility approach are within ranges that are common in cohort studies, okay? For several of the food groups, more than one meta-analysis is available. For red and processed meats, a more recent meta-analysis from 2019 than the one used in our estimates has been published. However, this did not present dose-response data for red and processed meats separately. Okay. Okay. The total effect is probable for fish, whole grains, and legumes. More recent but smaller and less comprehensive meta-analyses were omitted. Okay, that's just getting into how the study was done. How many servings of fruits and vegetables add years to your life? Blue Zones area centenarians ate 90 to 95% plant-based diet rich in beans, greens, grains, nuts, and nuts for most of their lives. In recent years, there have been countless studies about longevity diets and healthy eating in general, but one piece of advice seems to ring true for all. Eat more fruits and vegetables. Again, eat more vegetables, I think, would be the best. How much longer do fruit and veggie eaters live? According to research published in the 5 fruits and vegetables a day lived an extra 3 years compared to their non-plant eating counterparts. In a different study published in Nutrition Journal, researchers found that spending just 50 cents a day on fruits and vegetables could buy people about a 10% drop in mortality. Plant foods don't just add years to your life, they also directly affect your chronic disease risk. Even eating 2.5 standard portions of fruit and vegetables per day is associated with a 16% reduced risk of heart disease, an 18% reduced risk of stroke, a 13% reduced risk of cardiovascular disease, a 4% reduced risk of cancer, and a 15% reduction in the risk of premature death. 5 servings is good, but more is better. I like what Dr. Walls encourages. If anybody's not familiar with Dr. Walls created the Walls Protocol, which is a paleo-based diet for the reversal of multiple sclerosis and autoimmune diseases, brain injuries, etc. And she recommends 9 servings of fruits and vegetables, and specific kinds of fruits and vegetables, but 9 servings of fruits and vegetables. Non-starchy vegetables. Eating 7 or more portions of fruit and veggies a day can lower your risk of premature death by a whopping 42%, according to a study published in the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health. But 7 is not the upper limit. The protective benefits increase with higher fruit and vegetable consumption. In a study led by Imperial College in London, eating 10 portions of fruits and vegetables, that's 10 servings a day, is associated with 24% reduced risk of heart disease, 33% reduced risk of stroke, 28% reduced risk of cardiovascular disease, 13% reduced risk of total cancer, 31% reduction in premature deaths. Although 5 portions of fruit and vegetables is good, 10 a day is even better. I'd be derelict if I didn't mention exercise while talking about longevity, right? So let's talk about exercise. Adults who engage in leisure time aerobic and muscle strengthening activities at levels recommended by the 2018 Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans show greatly reduced risk of all cause and cause-specific mortality. These data suggest that physical activity levels recommended in the guidelines are associated with important survival benefits. Physical activity recommendations and decreased risk of mortality. Following physical activity guidelines is associated with a lower risk of death. Mortality benefit may also be achieved by engaging in less than recommended activity levels. Physical activity promotes health and longevity, and increasing participation in regular exercise has been a major public health goal in the United States for decades. The Office of the U.S. Surgeon General, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the American College of Sports Medicine all endorse a minimum of 30 minutes of moderate activity on most days of the week. An amount and intensity of activity that is feasible for most Americans. Recent nationally representative survey data indicate that more than 50% of the adult population do not meet the lower bound of physical activity recommendation, a proportion that has remained essentially unchanged throughout the last decade. Commonly reported barriers to activity participation include lack of time and the perceived effort of exercise. Given the potential mortality benefit, meaning it makes you freaking live longer, from achieving the physical activity guidelines, surprisingly little is known about current physical activity recommendations as they relate to mortality. The sparse epidemiologic data available suggest a 20% to 30% decreased mortality risk for subjects expending approximately 1,000 calories per week, the equivalent of minimal adherence to the recommendations. Moreover, the specific role of activity of at least moderate intensity is poorly understood. Okay, study population, cohort follow-up. Let's see here. Statistical results. Okay. Let's see, comment. In this large prospective study, engaging in physical activity of at least moderate intensity for more than 3 hours a week was associated with a 27% decreased risk of mortality, following the recommendation for vigorous exercise of 20 minutes 3 or more times per week was related to a 32% reduction in mortality risk. The data lend strong support to current physical activity guidelines, which endorse 30 minutes of moderate activity on most days of the week, or 20 minutes of vigorous exercise 3 or more times per week. Apart from the present study, only one previous investigation has quantified both moderate and vigorous activity in a manner that facilitates a direct comparison with physical activity guidelines. Now, I just got into Dr. Kenneth Cooper's work, okay? This is not Dr. Kenneth Cooper, I don't think, but this is probably based on his research. But what you have to understand is exercise capacity, meaning how well and how long you can exercise, is an independent predictor of all-cause mortality in older men. The relationship is inverse and graded, meaning the better you are, the fitter you are, the less likely you are to die. I mean, it shouldn't be that amazing that we know this. An inverse graded independent and robust association, meaning it's robust means it means something, okay, between physical fitness status and mortality is supported by large epidemiological studies in apparently healthy subjects and in patients with documented cardiovascular disease. These health risks are particularly apparent at relatively low fitness levels, but decrease with higher physical activity patterns or fitness status. Most of this evidence is based on studies conducted among middle-aged individuals. Relatively few studies have examined the health benefits of fitness in older populations. According to Center for Disease Control Prevention, method study. Okay, exercise assessments, statistical analysis, results. Let's see, I want to. The median follow-up. Okay, so let's see here. Okay. Compelling study shows higher levels of fitness equals lowest all-cause mortality. Okay, so what do we got here? We got, okay, published in JAMA Network Open Looking. The average age of the study participants was 53 and 60% were male. The average length of follow-up for the study when compared with the lowest performers. Elite performance was associated with an 80% reduction in mortality risk. 80% reduction in mortality risk. In addition, the adjusted mortality risk of reduced performance was comparable to, if not significantly greater than, traditional clinical risk factors such as coronary artery disease. So your fitness level is a bigger predictor of decreasing your like if you're fit, that decreases your mortality level more than things like coronary artery disease, diabetes, and smoking. The researchers also found that among those with high-risk conditions such as coronary artery disease, diabetes, hypertension, and hyperlipidemia, all-cause mortality was inversely proportional to cardiovascular fitness, running and swimming and stuff like that, and lowest in the elite performers. So if you were in the shape of an athlete and an athletic shape, you had the lowest chance of dropping dead, even if you had these other risk factors. Physical activity is the primary predictor of cardiorespiratory fitness, demonstrating that exercise is truly medicine. Exercise is truly medicine. As Jack LaLanne would say, exercise is king, nutrition is queen. Put them together, you got a kingdom. Physical activity levels should be assessed at every health care visit. Patients with insufficient physical activity levels should receive a physical activity prescription and then be referred to a person, program, or place that can assist them in achieving recommended levels of physical activity. Additionally, this is from doctors. Additionally, we all need to work together to create environments and cultures in neighborhoods, workplaces, schools, etc., to ensure access to physical activity. So in closing, I wanted to leave you with this. This is that little food calculator of how to optimize your healthy food serving. So I live in the United States. My age is 39. I'm just showing you how to use it. I am a dude. I want optimal servings. So it's showing me, it's going to calculate everything. Expected years left, 40.4 total, 79.4 reference from birth. Whole grains. Okay, this is in grams. I should be eating 612.5 grams. Whole grains, 225. Fish, 50. Fish, this is for optimal versus, okay. So this gives you legumes, 200 grams. Oh, whoops. I didn't expect that to do that. Whoops. Refined grains, white meat. Okay. And that's all for this video.